Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jay, and today I have the new Sony FE 24 to 50mm f2.8G lens, which is going for $1099 US. So this lens will be available in May 2024, and it's Sony's 74th E-mount lens, which is really incredible if you think about it. That's so many lenses that are available for the E-mount system. Now, this is a do-everything style lens. It's got a pretty good range, 24 to 50, so that's good for a lot of stuff. It's got the constant f2.8 max aperture, which is great for low light. And the lens itself is just a compact, small design. You know, pretty much made for like the Sony a7C II, a7CR type cameras, you know what I mean? As far as if you want a compact kit. Now, according to Sony, this lens actually has better optical quality than the original 24 to 70 GM lens. That's pretty nuts. So, like I said, these new and this is a G badge, not GM badge. So Sony's really putting the best technology into these lenses, and I like that it's just a G badge because that means it costs about half. You know, the GMs are just so much more expensive. So this is a much better value, in my opinion, than the GM 24 to 70. Of course, you're losing that extra 20mm if you need that. That matters, but it is what it is. You could always use the APS-C crop factor mode and just punch in that little bit if you need a little more reach. So, you know, food for thought there. Now, this lens has a great minimum focus distance, which will yield you about 0.3x magnification, which is very good. So we're talking 19 centimeters at 24mm and 30 centimeters at 50mm. Now, this new lens also has support for focus breathing on select cameras and dynamic active stabilization mode on select cameras, like the ZV-E1, for example, has that. I just want to show you the focus breathing, and then I'll turn the breathing compensation on. Okay, now I have the focus breathing compensation on the 24 to 50G, and I'll click on the background, and you can see there is no focus breathing now. So cool. It does crop in just a little bit, as you can also see. Now it's got a lot of new glass in here. It's got 16 elements in 13 groups, super advanced technology, and Sony's like making lens elements to fix like all the lens flaws. As you will see, this has pretty much no fringing. It's incredible. So looking at the front here, we got a pinch style lens cap, and we have a 67mm filter thread. It also has 11 diaphragm blades for the aperture in there. So you're gonna get nice round bokeh balls, and you'll see in the sample photos, that's really nice. The more blades, the more circular the rendering is, which is really good. It's got a nice pedal style lens hood here. And it also has an AF/MF switch here. It's got a focus hold button. And it's got the manual aperture ring here that you can turn if you want. And it also has the click declick switch. Now the aperture ring does not have a lock switch, but it does lock pretty tight on auto. So this last little click here from 22 to auto, it takes a decent amount of effort there. So it is going to be pretty tough to turn the aperture by accident. I would prefer that it had a lock on there, but it is what it is. Now, another interesting thing about this lens is when you zoom it, 24mm is the extended length. So it extends about 1 inch, and 50mm, you know, is the closed length. So that's pretty interesting. You don't see that often. Now, it's got excellent weather sealing and build quality on this lens, and you can see it's got the rubber gasket on the back. Now, it also has the fluorine lens coating on the front, so if like water droplets, you know, land on it, they'll like bead off really nice. So I was testing this in the lab scene, and another cool thing is the parafocal. And what that means is when you're at like 24mm and you zoom to 70, the focus doesn't change. Because sometimes on some lenses, if they're not parafocal, you zoom in and then you have to refocus. So that's what that means. So let me just mount this up to the Sony a7C so you can see what it looks like mounted to camera. So here it is mounted to the Sony a7C. You can see it's fairly compact. I mean, it's still pretty large, I mean, overall, but I mean, compared to some other lenses like the 24 to 70, they are significantly bigger and significantly heavier. Now this lens only weighs 440 grams or 15.6 ounces. When compared to the 20 to 70 G lens, that's 488 grams. So it's a little bit heavier, not too much heavier, but a little bit. You get more reach with this lens, and you can see the sizes are similar. The 20 to 70 is a little bit fatter, which makes sense because of the 20mm, I'm guessing. And that's, you know, just what that looks like, just so you can see for comparison. If I zoom this one, you can see it goes out quite a bit further. Now, another key feature of this new lens is it's got the dual linear focus motors. Now, that's like the super fast ones. So this lens is going to be able to keep up with the 120 frames per second that the A9 III is capable of. So if you're tracking moving subjects for sports and things like that, this will be able to keep up with all of that with those super advanced high-speed focus motors. All right, guys, so now I'm recording with the new 24 to 50 millimeter G lens. So just for reference, behind the A7C II is my A7 IV, and I have the 25 millimeter f2 Batis lens on there. So this lens is about 2 feet, I would say 1.5 feet closer to me than the Batis lens. So it looks like I'm zoomed in a little bit more, but this is actually at 24 millimeter, just so you guys can see what it looks like. This is what 50 millimeter looks like. So you can see the range is really good, especially if you're doing something like this in the studio and you want a tighter cropped headshot, and it's wide enough like this, you know, like right now I'm touching the front of the camera, right, with my finger. So the front of the lens is whatever my arm length is away, and this is like the view that you get. So really good. Now, this is good enough where you can vlog with it too, because look, now I'm holding it. So 24 millimeter is enough to do vlogging, because there's other lenses like the 20 to 70 millimeter I have here, which is a wider view. You know, 20 millimeters is going to be significantly wider than 24, but it's a slower f4 aperture. So if you want more background butter, you'd be better off using the f2.8 at 24 millimeter. You can see that lens flare there. There is definitely some that I could see. It actually looks really cool. That's at 50 millimeter, f2.8. Let's put it at 24. And what you do see, that's pretty cool looking. All right, guys, let's check out some lab testing photos so you can see the sharpness and, you know, the bokeh ball renderings and stuff like that. And I'll also show you some video footage in the lab. Before we do that, I just wanted to tell you I created an awesome Sony E-mount lens guide, if you're unaware, where I list all 74 E-mount lenses with the key features that matter and links to reviews for your convenience when trying to find the lens that is right for you and your needs. I also have quick links to jump to the different lenses, such as full frame primes, full frame zooms, APS-C primes, and APS-C zooms. This way you don't have to scroll like forever, because there's 74 lenses. It's a lot of scrolling if you just go from top to bottom. All right, guys, let's check out some of these lab photos. I'll try to get through them as quick as possible, and I also have the video timestamped, so if you don't want to see this part because it's boring, you can just skip ahead to the real-world sample photos. I won't be offended, but I do want to go through these for those interested in those pixel peepers out there, you know what I'm saying? Also, on my website, I have the lab sample photos up with 100% crops, so it might be a little bit easier to see that when compared to looking at a video on YouTube. You know, you could fill your screen with the 100% crop, for example, and you don't have to worry about the YouTube compression affecting, you know, sharpness and so forth. So here we are in the lab scene looking at it 24 millimeter f2.8. And you can see if I zoom in, you could get very good sharpness here on the corners and very good sharpness in the center as well. Nice contrast and so forth. If we stop it down to f5.6 here, we'll zoom back in and you can see everything just crisps up a little bit more on the corner areas. You know, a little bit more depth of field, and you can see the background looking pretty good. Now, I also did 28 millimeter, 35 millimeter, and 50 millimeter, and they look very similar to this. I'm just gonna skip ahead to the 50 millimeter right here. All right, 50 millimeter f2.8. So you could see here, the background rendering obviously is looking a lot more buttery due to the increased telephoto. You can see the bokeh ball renderings here. They look pretty good, especially the larger light source. That looks really nice and round. These tiny light source lights tend not to look quite as good, but they still look pretty darn good in my opinion. You could see them, they're starting to cat eye a little bit here towards the edges. What I wanted to show you over here was the corner sharpness. You could see it's like a little bit soft here in the very, very corner. Now, if you just come in a little bit from the corner, like right here, it's sharp. So it only loses it right at like the very edge here at 2.8. So if I cycle through here, here's f4, here's f5.6, and you can see 5.6, you can see it's still just that tiny bit soft there in the corner. So again, corner to corner wise at 50 millimeter, it is just a little bit soft at the very edge, but like an inch or two in and it's like tack sharp. So just wanted to show you guys that. Now, I also wanted to show you the minimum focus distance here. So This is at 50 millimeter f2.8 minimum focus distance. Now, if I zoom in here, you can see the sharpness is pretty good. It's not like razor blade tack sharp, but that's kind of normal for minimum focus distance testing, depending on the lens. It's still very sharp, and this is a RAW file, by the way. So I imported these into the Imaging Edge editing app because I didn't have the lens profile in Lightroom yet. So I opened these up in Imaging Edge and exported them as 16-bit TIFFs and then imported them into Lightroom. That's why you're seeing this TIFF file name, in case you guys are wondering. But these are RAW files. I didn't do any adjustments to it other than the distortion correction that the Sony Imaging Edge software has, which Lightroom doesn't have yet. I'll also show you what the distortion looks like without it turned on in a minute. But I just want to show you the minimum focus here when I go through the aperture run. So here's f2.8, here's f4, here's f5.6, here's f8, and you can see there is just a little bit of octagoning starting to show up there, and there's a bit of a halo on the bokeh balls as well. Here's f11, f16. Now here's the minimum focus distance at 24 millimeter, and you can actually get a little bit closer at 24 millimeter, but you do get that wider angle view, like distorted look, like the perspective distortion. But because you can get so close, just look at that background butter. It looks really good. And the sharpness is really good at 24 millimeter as well. It's a little bit better than the 50 millimeter that you were just looking at. So when we go through the aperture run here, let me show you what this looks like. 5.6, f8, f11. And I only went to f11. So I just wanted to show you the distortion at 24 millimeter, and here you can see it very clearly. This is the TIFF file that has the lens profile correction on it, so you can see the distortion is fixed. But this is what the RAW file looks like currently. Once Lightroom has the lens correction, it'll look like the image on the right. But as it is now, this is what you get at 24 millimeter. And you can see there's quite a bit of curvature there. Now that's 24 millimeter at f2.8. 50 millimeter at 2.8 on the dollar bill. I'll switch to the coin. All right, so now I'm on the quarter. Now I'm going to go to the background. And you can see how smooth and buttery. Looking really good. And that's because I have the focus transition speed set to fairly slow for that really nice cinematic look. All right, so now I'm tracking the quarter, and I have the focus transition speed set to fast, so level 5. Not the fastest, but faster. So now if I move the quarter, you can see how it tracks as I'm moving it. And right there, you know, I'm beyond the minimum focus distance, so it's going to be a little blurry. Right when it sharpens up, right there, that is the minimum focus distance. And you can see how it tracks the quarter. Pretty cool, right? Let me click the background here so you can see it now transition at a faster speed. Now, if I try to go back to the quarter, it's really difficult because it's so out of focus. So I'm just going to click on the door area first, and then I'll go to the quarter like so. All right, so here's recording at the minimum focus distance at 24 millimeter. The previous was at 50 millimeter, f2.8. So here we go. Let me just switch to the background here. Well, I could track the quarter again, just like we were doing earlier. So you can watch that happen. I'm at the minimum focus distance right here, so I can track it further away and then bring it back. Let me go to the background now. You can see the background there. Back to the foreground, to the quarter, and there you have it. So another cool thing about this lens is it has the aperture ring on here, and it has a click and declick. So right now I have it declicked, so this way I can do an aperture throw. Watch this. So I'm just turning the aperture ring. Notice how the exposure stays consistent. All right, guys, let's check out some real world photos. And I only had this lens for like about a week, so I was only able to do so much with it with my time. You know, I full-time job and everything else, but I still got a lot of really good sample photos. So I went to Kingston and was walking around, just taking a couple of snapshots here, and it's a pretty cool little town. I guess, I don't know if this was uptown or downtown or whatever, but there's a lot of murals and paintings and cool artsy stuff, which I love taking photos of, especially when testing lenses. So check this out. So this is 24 millimeter versus 50 millimeter. So again, this is the range you can expect when standing in one position and zooming. So it's a pretty decent range, like I was saying. Here's just my bike rack on the back of my car. I just wanted to show you that background butter you can get. You know, looks pretty darn good. Nice 3D pop there. Here's another one that really has some 3D pop to it. There's a brick wall with a huge mural on it behind this stop sign, you know, across the street. So the mural is probably 15, 20 feet behind this stop sign. Now here's just one walking down the street here, just showing off some colors and clarity, contrast, high dynamic range scene for sure. Pretty cool entranceway to a store, and just a couple of snapshots. Cool, they had records for sale and stuff. Here's just some lights, just showing you the background rendering. Here's a cool old historic sign with the town behind it. And then here's one of the actual town. Now this was taken at f4, and just look at how sharp this is. So real world, guys, corner to corner, very, very sharp. This is just another one, like, you know, just again, taking pictures of stuff really close so you can see that background butter. I like the reflection shots. They had a lot of really cool storefronts in Kingston here. Here's just an architecture here. Just wanted to show you how that looks at 50mm versus 24mm, as you could see here. Now here's just a shot, you know, on the street, again, just showing off the background butter and how it handles the really high contrast in the sky here. A couple sample shots, just some pretty cool old architecture buildings, street view. Here's some of that art I was talking about. See, it's extremely sharp. Here's just another historic sign, the Four Corners. And this is kind of cool for history. 1663 to 1775, these houses were built, these stone houses on this Four Corners. That's pretty cool. So here's another house that was built, you know, a really long time ago. And this is the Rough Draft Bar and Books. A couple more street scenes. Here's another mural. I mean, the detail on this guy's face, I mean, this is a really, really well done one. It's very like photorealistic as far as like quality. Check out this bird shot, this pigeon here. He was just sitting there. And I got this one. I missed the tip of his wing up here, unfortunately, but I thought this shot came out really good. I mean, you could just see the sharpness, clarity, and the background blur. This shot really has some nice 3D pop, in my opinion. And it shows off in like a little bit of that special sauce that this lens has. Remember, better than the original 24-70 GM as far as optical quality goes. So this is a pretty good example of that, in my opinion. I really like this photo too. It really shows like the depth of field play, the clarity, contrast, and all that. Just look at this sharpness and color and stuff, you know? Really, really good stuff. And here's a cow head, apparently it's called. It's pretty interesting. They're laying all over the place. I don't think I've ever seen one of these before, but it's cool. You know, this type of lens, you could just point stuff at your hand and take a cool shot. And that's at 50mm. Because of that minimum focus distance, you can do stuff like this easily. Some lenses, you're like trying to hold your hand out to take a picture because the minimum focus distance, it just isn't close enough. So just wanted to show you that. So I was doing a real estate shoot and in the woods here, showing off this property, this beautiful property. You know, you could see that 24mm is giving you that nice wide angle view of the forest. This is just a couple of snapshots of the Christmas tree farm that this property had. Oh, there was this cool old well in the woods too, and it was actually like green down there. The water was like perfectly clear. Here's just one of Jace, just taking some snapshots on the way to dinner here. I just asked him real quick, just so you can see a couple of, you know, they're not really professional portraits or anything, but quick sample there. Here's just one, my car in the background. Here's a pine cone with the street light. Now you can see on this street light, there is just a tiny bit of fringing there, but not much at all. Very well controlled, I would say. And you can see the cat eye effect over here. I think it looks really good. Here's just a night scene. And if I zoom in, you can see the ISO is pretty high, 3200, but you can see how the light's rendered. And this was at f2.8. So really good overall, I would say. Now at the restaurant, I just took a couple of snapshots quick. I'm not going to plug this restaurant because the food kind of sucked, but the lights were crazy. They had so many Christmas lights. So I just took a couple of snapshots. There's my brother Chris, and there's all these lights in the background. I put glasses in the front so you can see that depth of field play. Here's one of my dad. We were celebrating our birthdays. My birthday's actually today, February 23rd. Oh, guys, so last night I wanted to get some more low light shots. So I went to this restaurant that I will plug because the food is friggin' awesome. It's called The Dale, and it's actually in Mountaindale. They have a really good menu. Just the scene in there is pretty cool. They had really good music playing. It was low light and just a good vibe. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, scrolling in here on the menu, I just wanted to show you again that fringing control. So normally you would start to see it in the out of focus areas, and it's pretty much like non-existent as far as I could tell. Just extremely well controlled. These new Sony lenses have all those special elements in there that help cancel out all the fringing. And you can see here like how it pays off. Here's just one. I just took a shot down the bar, 24mm to show that background render. So this is 24mm. And this is 41mm. Now, here's just one looking towards the right, and I just wanted to show you really quick. I'm using the Sony a7C II, by the way, and I just want to show you how much dynamic range that sensor actually has. You see that? I can bring that all the way up, and I could lower the exposure outside. So, you know, something like that, and then I could just raise the overall exposure. So looking at a few more snapshots here, I'm just anticipating my food coming, and here's the plate. So this is 24mm versus 50mm. Here's just a shot of the looking out the front window there. Juice bomb, and I wanted to take a couple of snapshots. They gave me a cool glass 50mm with the bar in the background. Here's another one looking down. This is awesome for like food and restaurant type photography in my opinion. Here's another one, 48mm. Here's one at 24mm, so you can see more of the background, but you're getting a little bit of that distortion on the glass itself. Now here's looking down at the food I got. This was chicken thighs fried in duck fat, and it came with this sourdough bread, which was really good. I mean, look at this. Really, really good. And this is at ISO 5000, so the ISO is pretty darn high because the lighting was so low in here. It was really dark. Now here's one of the actual chicken, which was exceptionally good, I gotta say. Nice crispy skin and everything. Now here's the pizza. They use sourdough to make their pizza, so it's like easier on your stomach. I really like it. And zoomed in here on the pepperoni. It's another couple of shots here, some more pizza. All right, guys, so at the end of the day, I really like this lens because, you know, it's super versatile with the 24 to 50mm range. And, you know, the fast, constant f2.8 aperture makes it really good for low light situations, as you saw in the sample photos at the Dale, and also background butter. You know, 2.8, 24mm is really good for vlogging and background separation. 50mm is really good for portraits and stuff, so you could use this for that or weddings. Also, the minimum focus distance allows for those really close up shots, you know, when you're just walking around vlogging or, you know, like again, at the restaurant with food photography and stuff like that. Now, it's also cool as this lens can be used for gimbal work. It's actually freezing out here, by the way, but I'm wearing these cool PGY Tech gloves they sent me. These gloves are incredible, so I don't have to worry about my hands being cold. But anyway, on the gimbal, this is super cool because you could have it at 50mm or 24mm, and I didn't have to recalibrate the gimbal because the weight and the payload is consistent enough when zooming that it's not that big of a deal for a decent gimbal like the one I'm using here, the Weebill 3. So I am using an ND filter. I'm using a Nisi ND filter, just so you guys know. If you see any weird flaring and stuff, I do have an extra piece of glass in front of the lens to help slow the shutter speed down. So my, you know, overall conclusions with this lens would have to be like versatility and value, because remember, to get this kind of optical quality, normally you have to shell out the money for a GM badge lens, which, let's face it, we're looking at 2,000 plus for the most part, depending on which optic you're going for, but I'm thinking the 24 to 70 GM2 in particular. So, you know, you get this for about half price, less than half price. Now you could get the original GM 24 to 70 if you need that extra 20mm reach, but that lens is significantly larger and heavier. So there's always a compromise. So like I was saying, value and versatility. And on top of that, you add lightweight and compact, and it's just a really good package in my opinion, especially for 1100 US. GM optical quality for that price point. It's pretty crazy. All right, guys, that about wraps up this review on the new 24 to 50 millimeter f2.8G lens. I really hope you got what you were looking for. If you did, it would be super cool if you gave me a thumbs up, but it'd be even cooler if you hit that subscribe button as well. So this way, you know, you can watch new videos when they come out. All right, guys, links below in the description area, and thanks again for checking out my video. I will catch up with you next time. Take care.